charge of inventory management, making sure that we've got our plants growing, that we need for our inventory for the jobs that we expect. So I'm ordering plants, I'm scheduling the planting of things that need planting. If you need bids for jobs that you're going to be doing, I'm the guy to talk to for that. I can get your prices so you can put in bids for stuff. A lot of people don't know I have a degree in architecture, so I also get to do a lot of the infrastructure design and implementation in the nurseries. So I stay busy. So, what is the advantage of coming to us? How can we help you? Obviously, like today, we have a lot of information that we can share. Some of you have called me throughout the growing season with questions, and we try to have the answers. If we don't have the answers, I make a phone call, and I get the answers. Because if you guys have questions, other people do too, and it's something that we need to know and we need to get out there for you guys. But it's not just information. We have plants. Think of us as your distribution center. This is just a picture from our loading dock on one of those early spring days when the semis are rolling in. We're unloading stuff and we're just lining it up on both sides of the dock because we don't have time to put it where it goes because they're coming in so fast. That was a little blow there. The sun came out. That one. Yeah. Getting in. There we go. We're sourcing our materials from many growers across the country. When I'm looking to put in orders, I'm looking through spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets to see what's available, where can I get it, how soon can I get it. But we really have a good network of growers who have good quality and decent prices, so we can pass that on to you. Sure. With that many different sources, I can usually find the plants you're asking for. Even if some guys are sold out of them, I can find them somewhere else. Not always. Some plants are hard to find, as we've heard from these guys. If stuff hasn't grown fast enough, we can't get it. Then we'll try to find an acceptable substitution for you. Now, when we're going all across the country, we have to make sure that we're getting hardy stuff. We're not bringing in stuff that's not going to live here. We try to stay as fully stocked as possible throughout the whole season because you guys want to work as long as possible until you get sick working when it's December. But we need to have the material for you. So occasionally I'll have a retail customer come in and say, when's your fall sale? We don't have a fall sale because we want to keep having plants available to you the whole time. We're not trying to clear it out. And we also need to have them available right away in the spring. The large growers, as you heard from Herman's talk, are growing millions of plants at a time. It's just not feasible for them to sell to people by 5s and 10s at a time. Or we can do that. In fact, if you need one Carl Forester Daylily to come in and finish your job, we'll sell that to you. We've done that throughout the years and we're going to continue to do it. If you need to put in an order from a big grower, they can't do the little orders. They're going to have requests for a minimum order in the thousands of dollars. Don't need to do that for us. But if you do have a big job, we're big enough to handle that too. We've done orders of thousands of plants for a single job. Most of you know that we have 2 locations, one here in T by the airport. The other one's our production farm out west of Sioux Falls. Contractors and landscapers can come in and pick up from both locations. You're welcome to do either one. If you've got an order ready ahead of time, we can get it ready for you so it's ready to pick up as soon as you get there. We have a delivery truck too. You've probably seen it running back and forth occasionally from the farm to T to fill up the retail store down here. We do deliver with that as well. And it's a pretty simple thing. Just tell us what you need. $75 in town, $3 a mile one way in state. And you can also do custom shipping with some of the big semis too if you have a really big order. To keep prices low, we like to grow as much of our own as possible, and that means bare root, as you saw in some of the slides. Also plugs for perennials and shrubs. Growing them ourselves, we can bring them in cheaply, grow them on site, and have them ready for you. If there's something that we don't have or don't grow, or we need more of them than what we have, we can custom order them, custom grow them, and have them ready when you need them. Specifically trees, since that's what we're really focusing on today. 3 ways you can get them: bare root, which obviously, just like it sounds, the roots are bare. Potted, they come rooted in the container, or ball and burlap. They're grown in the ground and dug out and put in a burlap sack with a wire cage around it to protect it. This is a very dark picture, but this is our root cellar, and it's kind of dark in there. We bring in bare root in the spring, typically March and April. Bare root's the most economical way to plant your tree. It's the cheapest. You don't have to haul around a lot of soil when you're transporting them. But the planting window is very small. And you guys know what our springs are like. Some years you can plant, some years you can't. If you can get them in the ground before the end of May, that'd be a good option for you. If not, it's best to go with a containerized tree, which we get 2 ways. Either we buy them in, already rooted in the containers. You can see there a semi-truck just stacked full of containers. The finished containers are a good source for materials that are hard to grow from bare root, particularly oaks, lindens, some aspens. Hard to get going and get a nice growth rate on. So if we buy them in finished already, they're ready to go. They already got finished roots, and you can drop them right in the ground. Otherwise, all that bare root that we bring in, if you don't plant it right away, we drop it in pots, grow it into pots until they're rooted in, and then they're ready to sell. That is a picture of our pot system, which you also saw on Herman's presentation. A socket pot is dug into the ground, and we can slip trees right in and out of it. Helps keep the roots cool and keeps the tree upright from tipping over with our palm little creases that we have here. And then we also have an irrigation system running on all those. Ball and burlap are the big trees, typically 1 3/4, 2 inch caliper and larger. Ball and burlap have to be dug when they're dormant, which means no leaves on them, as you can see in this picture. That means there's also a small window for purchasing ball and burlap for us. We purchase the bulk of them in the spring. There's sometimes a small window in the fall, depending on the weather. If the trees will go dormant and we have decent enough weather to dig, it's an iffy thing from year to year. So spring really is when we buy all our ball and burlap. Obviously, you guys need them throughout the year, so we buy in as much as we think we're going to need to have available for you. We line them up and mulch them in, keep the roots cool, drop irrigation lines on them, and that way we can keep them all summer long. You can see they're a little bit more leafed out in the second picture, but then they're accessible, so whenever we need them, we have them available. With the emerald ash borer, what are we going to do different? We're working hard to increase our variety and selection of trees that we have available. We have had coffee tree and hybrid elm that you saw on some of the slides available for several years now. They're still catching on for popularity, but we have those. We've got limited supply of ginkgo coming in now, and a few more that we're going to be trying. Catalpa, yellowwood, cork tree, all ones that we haven't really carried in stock before that we're going to be doing going forward. We're also evaluating trees for suitability in our area. We're sticking a few in the ground out at our production farm to see how they do, the plane tree and a few others. So if you want to see how some of those are doing, just come on out and take a look, see how they're growing, how do they look when they get bigger. Hopefully someday we'll have a little mini arboretum out there of our own. And we're going to increase the quantity of some of those trees that have been recommended, particularly by the city for street trees. We just want to have more of them available. And we'll continue to grow with the demand. We look at our sales data every year, see which varieties are popular, which ones are selling more. We also look at what the trends are in the industry, both locally and throughout the country. What's becoming more popular? What are the new varieties out there? What aren't doing so well? And we also look at how many requests have we had for certain items, what are the requirements of, say, the city, or jobs that are being put out. So, if you have any questions, our guys are ready.
Well, raise your hand, and then Dan will come around with the mic, and that way we can hear you.
I'll bring mine around too. Mary's got a question.
I have a request. When you are asking your questions, please take the microphone and give us a lollipop. Just put it up your chin. But don't lick it. That would be really gross.
Okay, this question is more for Herman, because this is something that we see at the retail center as well. What strategies would you recommend for helping us sell slower growing trees? Because there are some challenges for these newer varieties and some of those slower growers to retail. So this will work for also our wholesale customers. How do we encourage those slower variety trees? Do you have any sales tactics?
Hello? Does everybody hear me now? Okay. Tactics. Don't talk about rate of growth. Eliminate it from the equation. If it's not part of the conversation, if they bring it up, you don't have to acknowledge it. Come on, you don't know that. So, no one just wanted to say it. I did it for you. He's running for office. So you don't address that. You skew your discussion to the advantages that are there of those trees. And you can say, look, folks, we haven't been talking about this correctly for the past X number of years. We really need to look at this differently. You can say exactly what we've said here. We need to reframe this conversation that we're having. We can't talk in the rate of speed of growth, because I'm not going to give you an answer that you're going to find acceptable. You want me to say 7 years, 3.5 years. It doesn't happen that way. We haven't been conversing about this correctly. We're going to change that right here, right now. The situation mandates it, because we're not actually being truthful all around. We're talking decades. So let's just forget about that. You're going to have a beautiful tree in 20 or 30 years. All of our antidotes point to that. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. We all say these things, but we don't use it in our upfront conversation when we talk with people. Talk about it honestly.
Thank you. Okay, second one, and then I'll give it up to somebody else. On that same note then, my next question would be for all of us, for the larger trees. We all have customers that want that instant, landscape. They want it to look big and so forth, but that also comes with a bigger price tag. What strategies do you have to help show what they're getting? What talking points do you have to help with selling those more expensive trees?
Jason?
Buying time,
Well, I'll try to go first. That's a great question. And sales strategy for selling big trees. Price is usually the issue, but you're buying time. Some trees really transplant well and take off? How big are we talking? A big B&B mostly?
Depending on the customer.
Yeah, it's a value statement. It's what value they put on having that instant shade. So it just comes back to whether they value gaining some amount of years.
I think another thing that, you know, in any sale, you need to inquire, you know, what their budgets are, and you give them choices. I mean, you know, when I go shopping with my wife, you know, I give her choices. You know, she gives me choices. You know, I mean, also just in sales, remember that it's usually the woman that will make that decision. And so you need to work, I mean, that's what sales research, I mean, you know, I've been in sales for years. Our company paid a lot of money. When it comes to that type of purchase, the female will normally make the decisions. Just so you know that.
You want to go?
Sure. Good. So when I worked at garden centers, I got the question all the time. It's a common question. We've all been faced with it. I'm sorry, I'm really a brutalist with reality, all right? So brace yourselves, you're laughing at maybe. I would tell them it's a value proposition. And only you can tell that. But we need to think of it, what is that value proposition for the consumer? So this would be July, right? I would stand with a 5-gallon tree on my left and the large 2.5-inch bulb and burlap on my right. And I would say, picture this. It's Christmas Eve. The snow is lightly falling out the picture window. The Yule log is burning perfectly. And you look out at your beautiful, majestic twig. If you will look at this and in 1 year think, I should have got the bigger one. I think that's the value proposition. You know, they're going to choose whether it's inexpensive or the more expensive. Not cheaper, it's the same quality. They're very good options. It's just about what you're going to be happy with. And from personal experience, I can't look that far in the future. 1 year in the future, I'm already saying, all right, when's it going to be 30 feet tall?
Yeah, I got one, Jason. Talk about wire baskets and B&B trees. There's a lot of discrepancies, a lot of opinions. I want to know your opinion based on whatever research you've seen, because there are job sites and commercial sites where they're requiring you to cut them off.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about that in a minute.
Well, research will tell you one thing. My experiences tell me some different stuff. Luckily, I've got a few customers that are part of some research studies for the last 5 or 6 years. And most of what my experience and what their research is coming to now, which is kind of unpopular, is doesn't matter, leave them on. Leave them on and just do not take them off and then roll them in a hole. The key to all of it is planting depth. If you're planting it too low, stem and root tissue will not well together. But so root flare is very important. That's the key. Whether there's a wire basket or not doesn't matter. Roots will go right over the wire, connect again, and keep going. It's very rare that a tree is girdled by a wire basket. Burlap is a little bit of a different discussion. It shouldn't be cut and shoved down the sides of the hole. It should be cut and removed, my opinion.
You got one here?
Okay, my question is on the pine trees. I'm seeing a lot of pine trees around here that are dying. And I got a Scotch pine on my property that 15 feet high, there's a branch that's turning around. So is that pine needle or Scotch pine willow?
You know, you need to really get a look at it. What's very interesting for any of you that aren't familiar with it, but there was a workshop held up a while ago using drones. the drone technology that's going to be used in agriculture in the future is going to be huge, because there are sensors and pictures and intensifications that you'd have to scale that tree to ever see it. You know, I mean, who knows? You might have had snow. I mean, you know, did we get snow accumulation on that that's cracked? I mean, you really have to look at it. Usually, from what I've seen, and you can correct me, but boy, you know, that stuff, it usually shows up right away in the spring of the year, and then by the fall, it's gone.
If not sooner.
Yep.
It can take you down in a matter of a month.
Yeah, I know. It's vast. I don't think we've seen a lot of that up here yet. Jason, have you guys? Jason, have you guys seen a lot of, you know, Scotch pine built?
No,
Yeah.
but we've seen it started.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't there a problem with pine pit borer though?
Well, there's pine tip borer, and there's spruce tip borer, and there's plenty of all kinds of insects. Generally, I think if trees are healthy, they tend not to be affected that much. Now, invasive pests from other areas, that's different. But for anything that's native, healthy trees don't usually get bothered. It's sickly trees that do. Just so people understand, sorry about that. Pine wilt nematode or Scotch pine wilt that's one of our native diseases. That's one that we've actually introduced to other countries. Scotch is not native as a pine tree, and that's why it's affected. That's why ponderosa and white pine will tolerate pine wilt.
I just have a question regarding the tree list, and going back quickly to the fact that there are no maples on there. I have a thought on this. I know a lot of my customers who like maples are going to be wanting to push back on this, and I think if some of us might want to have the city fathers at some point who make these decisions maybe reconsider for maples on the boulevards. It might, sometimes I think it's more effective than when we maybe voice our opinion is in this industry, although I know they're listening, and like Matthew stated, it's a joint venture. We all want to do things well and work together. I think sometimes when there's public outcry, if you want to call it that, or they hear from a lot of individuals, that might be something that we should consider just saying to our clients, well, you know, maybe you should just call the city. I'm sure they'd appreciate your opinion. You know, you're a taxpayer. And it's just food for thought. And I guess a follow-up question on that. I'm just curious if anyone knows if there were any, you know, people in the business from our green industry, any representatives in this room that were on that committee, or I'm just a little bit curious if that's all done by our government entities, those kinds of decisions, or whether there's, you know, input from people in the private sector too. Thanks.
So Jill, just to address, one of my landscape friends in New York, what their area group did, because of, you know, the list that came out, is they had little print-offs of who they needed to call and gave it to the customer and said, you know, if you want to get this changed, give these people a call. I mean, it's just something you can hand out, all from here, and just a thought from one of your friends from New York.
Last June, after the announcement of Emerald Ash Borer, I approached the city forestry department, for them to become a customer of Bailey Nurseries. I extended an open invitation to tour the facilities, speak with our growers, to better get a context for where tree growth is at. I was told that they've done this for a long time and they know what they're doing.
Bill, I'll answer that question, Bill, because I did call Kelby the other day and asked him about the American elm. And he didn't have an answer for me, but he says he relies on Dwayne, and I do believe it's Brian, because it's in their hands to make those decisions. So right now, it sounds like it's a one-person decision-making process. So that would be the person to, like Glenn said, maybe that's a good idea. Call them, ask them. They need to hear from us. Okay?
You've been getting in seminars a list of alternative trees to plant, for 5 years, maybe even close to 10. But it's still real hard to find them and to buy them. Is Bailey's working research and development or ramping up certain varieties that correspond with what some of the trees that Jason told us?
Great question. So, Emerald ash borer originated in the Detroit area there in the early 2000s. 2006 it hit Chicago. 2009 it hit Minneapolis. Chicago is the third largest metropolitan area in the United States. If we were going to ramp up production, and we did, it was for when it hit the Chicago market. So no offense, I love my town of Sioux Falls, we're $250,000. We're not going to be ramping up production so we're at a peak production. We're having the same issues, as I mentioned before, as you guys. Great, let's put more plants. We don't have more labor. Shoot, how do we do this? We've got a 5 to 7 year production process. Had you been able to tell me what you would have liked 6 years ago, yes, we can certainly look at that. So, as we pointed out the whole day here, we have all these challenges. We'll gladly grow more if we know what it is that you're looking for. And if it's in the confines of what works for that plant. Australia virginica, the hot hornbeam, fabulous tree, not utilized enough. Yeah, you're not going to get a 3-inch diameter tree. It's not, it's in practicality. So, the communication amongst all components of the supply chain need to be there so that the architects are speccing the sizes that are appropriate for the species so they can be grown effectively and efficiently to support that. Yet the requirements put down onto the architects by the cities needs to be relevant to all of that as well. So no one's talking to no one else, which creates a lot of frustration.
And you also have to take it, and that's well said, by the way, you have to take it from the grower's perspective. We still sell out of Autoblaze. We don't sell out of Australia. So it's a business. It makes it tough. Nobody wants to pull those trees. So it makes it difficult for us to judge, and we are judging 3 to 7 years out of what we grow. So it's a challenge. The more communication we have, the better it's going to be.
In the pictures where I showed you the pictures of the coolers, they're more than 6 football fields worth of storage. At our peak of ash production, half of that space was filled with ash trees. So I put it to you, well, which one do we go with? Well, which one do we turn to? In 4 years, the ash distribution went to almost 0. Had you been able to give me some insight at that point, which, and I'm not faulting you because it wasn't here, but in the industry, we didn't have any plans for what's next. Using diversity is not going to prevent our next crisis. Using diversity is going to help buffer us. So when the next crisis happens, it isn't the 30% of our urban forest.
Herman, how many Autoblaze trees do you put here?
Are you looking to place an order? Many. I don't know offhand, but you saw production numbers. So when budding and grafting and all of that, a lot. It's a lot. It's sickening. I like the tree. The tree is still a good tree. I know it gets bad branch angles. Hello, it's Acer, it's silver maple. That's what it does. But we know that. But yet we keep beating our head against the wall. Hey, this doesn't hurt. Yes, it does. We need to make, so the concept of what we're talking about, we need to change the dialogue here. We need to change and to use these different plants to sell the plants that aren't sellable. And we do that rather than talking about two characteristics that are buzzwords that we know everybody wants, that we start talking about urban community forest. Because if we don't start doing this, our rights get taken away, the right to choose, and we get told what to plant. So if we don't take accountability for some of this, someone else starts doing it, and none of us want that. You don't want me to tell you what you have to buy. You want that choice. So then empower ourselves by putting a little work into it and changing how we look at things.
Herman, I think it's also important to talk about how we decide how many plants and stuff to order. At nursery wholesalers, we'll sit in the wintertime and go through spreadsheet after spreadsheet of numbers of what you guys buy. We base our purchases on what those numbers are. So we don't do a lot of guesswork, because guesswork ends up being garbage later because they aren't being sold. You know, I think I can remember Lyle coming out to the farm 8-10 years ago, and we had some beautiful espresso coffee trees. We were ahead of it. They didn't get sold. It's a shame. You know, so I'm sure Bailey's in the same boat. We can't just predict, we don't have a crystal ball. So we're basing things on ordering on numbers. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? So that's why the input is important, and we will ramp up. We'll try some yellow lips, but we can't do it for very long and eat them and throw them away, or put them in my yard. There's only so much room. So I think that's important that you guys know that. That's the process that we go through with ordering plants. Okay? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Well, we try to do the best we can. Okay?
15 years ago, we had Macchia amaranthus sold at Beirut, sold at Containers. Same time frame, we had all kinds of philodendron cork trees. Nobody wanted them, not interested, sat there. Well, I don't know what that does. Great, let's learn. We don't have them now. Why? We're not going to waste our time with stuff that you guys don't want to buy. And unfortunately, we're in this system called capitalism, and we're all in it to make a living.
Herman, just to follow up on that, I think because the autumn blaze maple and some of those trees are so, I mean, they're striking. The average homeowner can drive by and say, hey, that looks good, I want that. I think one of the things that would help from the design and sales side is to have some imagery, and I'm talking high quality professional imagery that shows the tree's form, the desirable characteristics, so that you can pitch that to a homeowner and get them comfortable with using something that's not typically used in the industry. In some species that exist, but some species, especially the lesser known things, it's not available. So you're kind of really expecting them to take a risk at this without a lot of reassurance of what they're getting.
You know, this weekend, or I think it's this weekend, coming up is the home show, right? And, you know, many of us, or, you know, the industry go there. You know, maybe it's time, you know, we put together, you know, a joint effort, and put together an educational seminar a little bit, because homeowners, remember, they are not horticulturalists, they are not agriculturalists. That's a root. Oh, yeah, you know, green side up, yeah. That's what you do, you know. They don't know. And unless we do something to start the conversation where you have all those people going through, you know, we can talk as a group, but what's our plan to educate the customers? The only thing that they really get is, you know, the whole, you know, that we have these master gardeners. Hey, great, they have a basic knowledge, but they don't have the background. And I think, you know, we all have to invest a little of our time or even some of our resources of people to get out and get the word out to the people from the professionals. That's how I feel.
Your point is well taken. It's a challenge that in my 25 years in the industry, I don't think we've been able to even touch on. Because here's the challenge. Do you want the picture of the plant in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, or in the winter? And winter interest, winter foliage, berries, before fruit set, after flower drop. There are a lot of images that come with any individual plant. That aside, we're all tired of the pictures from New Jersey. Because we know that the plant doesn't look like that in South Dakota. If you work with your vendors, such as nursery wholesalers, they have access to high resolution images that Bailey Nursery can provide them. And I'll fully admit it isn't complete with what I would perceive as the most comprehensive. Like Don just pointed out, we need to take action. Well, the action I can take is I work very closely with McCrory Gardens. And just about every plant that I can offer them goes right up to McCrory Gardens, and 1 hour away, it's there for you. And I know you guys aren't retailers, but the brands also have a sign showing where they can get them. And I know you guys aren't landscapers, but we're there to make that connection, to put the information in front of the customers so they're aware of the product. That is the number one hardest challenge, is to make Herman O. Tiedemann homeowner aware that this is an option and what the attributes are. The secondary challenge is, this is no different than speed of growth or speaks directly to it. So when do I take the picture of the tree? Well, the 30-foot tall tree, do I take it at mature height? Do I take it at, we see this with conifers. Oh, it's a dwarf conifer. Dwarf is a function of growth rate. I've been saying it for 25 years. It's a function of growth rate. But that rate, unlike my niece, does not stop growing. So the 1 inch a year after 12 years is 12 inches, and it just doesn't stop. It doesn't grow to a size and stop. It's challenging. These horticultural hurdles that we have about communication. Because I think it extends beyond even speed of growth and of size. It also speaks to hardiness zone. Because we hear, oh, it's hardy here. Oh, it's not hardy here. Well, my question is, when are we going to get past identifying hardiness zone? Because hardiness zone only speaks to the average annual minimum extreme temperature. It does not factor in average annual rainfall. It does not factor in soil pH. It does not factor in excessive winds, which add a complement of factors that are, in my opinion, far more than temperature. Because if we have a dry climate with winds in the winter and abundant temperature fluctuations both in the fall and the spring, maybe there's a reason woody plants didn't grow in the prairie. And I'm sowing trees, so please, we need to plant trees. But we're going against some major challenges when we're working to identify these with homeowners. We have a lot of things, so keep coming with some of the answers and the solutions so that I can pass them on in the chain as we can.
Another point of that is just the massive temperature swings we see up and down. We can see 60, 70 degree temperature swings in a 24-hour period. That will mess up a lot of trees.
And that doesn't care about your hardiness zone. You can have a zone 2 plant and kill it. And zone 2 plants need the cold to be killed by the summer temperature. That's why balsam fir don't grow down here. It's too hot. So going the reverse and saying, well, I'm going to get the Hardee's plant, that doesn't really work either. It's the combination of the totality of those factors, not any one factor itself.
Yeah, you're talking about the marketing of trees or the pictures. It's interesting because when we look at, I use an example, hydrangea is so over-marketed right now, and it's a different hydrangea every other week, it seems like. But yeah, we don't have all that with trees. It just takes longer to get there. It's a longer process to figure it all out, unfortunately. There's some great information on hydrangeas out there, but there's also not a lot of great information on the internet that you can trust without enough research to figure out if that website's lying or not.
And the perspective of where we need to qualify our sources. You all remember high school where you had to qualify our sources? We need to qualify our sources because the statements that are made out there on the internet could be accurate for North Carolina, for that one spot in North Carolina. So when you see the username, fancy plants, oh great, that means absolutely nothing. We need to qualify where the information is coming from. Because not just regionally and geographically, but as we pointed out, the Master Garden program is a fantastic program. I think it's great. I think it's put out there. But we all know that the public associates a term of master differently than they do anything else. So the fact that they completed a X number of hour program, they will trust that individual far more than a 40-year seasoned professional. It's a challenge, but how do we then work with that?